All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you all for coming to our webinar. This will be Maximize Your Impact. Communication with physicians is key. So we're going to talk about different ways to reach out and tips and tricks for that. So today we are going to, like I said, discuss different tips and tricks in regards to reaching out to candidates. So that's going to look like how many candidates should you send an email to? How many candidates should you text? How to expand and narrow your searches, as well as utilizing the different databases that you have available to you. We'll also take a look at some suggestions when it comes to subject line, formatting your email for the best readability, including hyperlinks, as well as utilizing the email delivery report for follow-ups and call lists as you work through those emails. In regards to text match, we'll take a look at times to send, approach to take as far as wording that text. So like asking a direct question, and then also ways to use text match as a follow-up for your emails. All right, so with that, let's jump in. There is one thing I just wanted to touch on briefly before we go into our databases, and that's just two little tips here on our homepage, things to be keeping an eye out for. One of them is going to be your applicants, and one of them is going to be your matches. So they'll both show up here on your homepage, but also you will get email notifications with their profiles. One tip for this, for the Career Center applicants, when you have a list here, the ones you have not taken a look at, those are going to show up in yellow. And also just a little tip so you know, under your pinpoint matches here, any that you have or that are practicing physicians, so we need to go back a little bit here just to be able to get one, they will show up in orange. So just so you can kind of see those two different things, but these are going to obviously be very important people that you are going to want to reach out to via email or phone call, because these are either people that have expressed direct interest in your opportunity by applying to it, or candidates that match the criteria in that opportunity. So these are going to be kind of like your more warm leads. So just two kind of things to keep in mind. With that, let's jump into the databases themselves. So we're going to primarily be focusing today on Pinpoint and MedTies. So starting out with Pinpoint, the search function that I would say probably you're most often going to be using for your email blast is going to be your full search. And within there, you have a lot of different criteria that you can select from. So we'll start by typing in our specialty. And we'll select it and we'll move it over to the side. So different things we want to be looking out for, kind of keeping an eye on the number over here on the right-hand side. Ideal pool size for a candidate is going to be for an email would be between 500 and 1500. Now, this obviously can vary based on your own personal email balance for your account, as well as the specialty that you're searching. Now, of course, you'll want to go through and you'll want to mark things like citizenship and things that you have required for that specific specialty. But one thing also that you can add for expanding that search would be our archived candidates. So the system defaults to available years of the current year plus the next. Largely, those are going to be candidates that we've recently interviewed. Some are going to be candidates that have updated their profile. But you can also add in the archived candidates, which are candidates we've interviewed in previous years. So those are going to include a lot of candidates that have maybe a little bit more experience in practicing and things like that. So you're able to add in a range there. Usually I will start with kind of 5 to 10 years back as my initial and just see what that number will kind of give us. And we can always come back to this and play with it a little bit more. Another thing to do when you do mark that is change your status to no preference, because obviously a lot of those candidates that are in the archives will be committed. So they are a little bit more of a passive group of candidates, but you know, we never know if the right opportunity comes along, they could be interested in switching that up. Another option that you could add in are going to be candidates that have not been interviewed. So these are going to be candidates we haven't directly spoken with, but we do have some contact information on them. So again, another way that you are able to kind of expand that search if you need to, especially for those more difficult to find specialties. Moving then on to our geographic preferences and ties. So with this, we'll start by selecting our state. And from there, we could add in the wheel states. We could clear out those selections. We could add in our region. So in this case, it would be just the Midwest. Or if we wanted to, we could select just certain states that we might want to focus on. There is an option as well for including open candidates. We always, recommend you kind of take that with a grain of salt, depending on, the location and the specialty, and also if you would accept visas. That can vary there as far as the open candidates are concerned. There is also an additional advanced options up here in the right-hand corner. This is going to be helpful for community size. So if you're in a more rural community, you could add in, that candidates that have expressed an interest specifically in that, or you could narrow down the tie types to any of the below options. And as I mentioned, just kind of run through our search. Now I am going to say that we're looking for St. Louis. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to select Missouri and Illinois here, and I'm going to save my search. There are additional options that you can go through as well. You will just need to mark these kind of depending on if they're relevant to your organization's needs and your opportunities needs. So I will go ahead and save my search. And usually I just say the specialty, the years, and the states I selected. Next, we'll move into med ties. Main option here that you're typically going to use again for those larger searches would be your query engine. So with that, we'll go ahead and we will mark our same specialty again. So we'll do primary and training. That's typically what I'll go for. That means they've completed their residency or they've completed their formal training in that specialty. If you require board certification for the particular opportunity, you will want to mark that here. If you accept board eligible, you can go ahead and leave that open. Typically, if you're sending an email, you're going to mark either required or licensed. Required are going to be the candidates that have an email on their profile. Licensed are going to be the candidates that do not have an email on their profile, but we can obtain it from a third-party source. Another option to keep in mind when using the MedTies search is going to be the maximum age. We usually recommend putting in a max age to avoid contacting inactive profiles. This information is obtained from the AMA. It is a more passive group of candidates. So sometimes you can get people in here that are nearing retirement or have since retired that are maybe not interested in an opportunity. So typically we say something between the ages of 55 and 65, just depending on what you are looking for. Another option that is really helpful in MedTies is under the training tab, and that is the residency and fellowship completion years. This is really helpful if you are looking for candidates with a specific number of years of experience. So say you had to have a candidate and they had to have 5 years of experience. You could put 2020 in the to tab, and that would mean that these candidates had completed their residency or fellowship in 2022 or prior. Also, we do recommend typically selecting your practice types. If it is just kind of a standard hospital or clinic type setting, we usually recommend practicing and training. If it's for more of an advanced type position, then we would suggest, maybe practicing admin, research, teaching, things like that. Keeping in mind that with MedTies, it is going to be what that candidate is actively doing, not necessarily what they're looking to do. So that's why we always usually recommend including that practicing option in there. Over on the right-hand side, there is also the trim function. Trim function is going to allow you to view some key details and as well as excluding any unwanted candidates. So if we were to click on the all specialties here, this is going to show us people that have any additional specialties and things like that. Now, obviously, since we selected cardiology, the majority of our search does include cardiology, but there are some additional specialties. So if you wanted to go through, you could remove those options. I usually select all and then deselect the one I wish to keep. And then we can click trim, and it will remove those additional candidates, leaving us with just plain cardiology. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the trim function is that you do want to make sure that this is the last step and everything else is set the way that you would like it, because you are not able to go back and change any of that criteria once you've completed the trim. You can go into your recent queries to recover that information, but you can't make any changes as it is. So again, I'll go ahead and I'll save my search. When saving a MedTie search, I typically recommend doing the little dollar signs in front of the name, just to know that this is in fact a MedTies search. So we'll go ahead and we will save our search. Now, since we have completed both of our searches, I'm going to go into our folders and we're going to select both of those to send an email to. So once we're in our folders, one helpful tip is you can actually sort the folders by date they were created on. So if I do that, it's going to bring those two that I just created straight up to the top, so I don't have to go searching for them. So we'll select both of our folders. By selecting both folders, this is going to then trigger the system to review those, remove the duplicates, and it will go with the pinpoint option. So I always recommend selecting them both at the same time as opposed to sending them out as two separate emails. So once we've selected our folders, we will go ahead and click on Compose Email. Now, there are several different email options available to you. Typically, I do tend to lean towards the email editor. That one just has a tendency to look a little bit more personalized, and there's different ways that you can customize it to look even more so. Also, what is helpful is the saved templates. So if you have a template that you previously created, you could go into your saved templates and very easily just edit that template. And you would not have to fully start from scratch. Your subject line, or I'm sorry, your signature line would already be in there. Maybe a general blurb about your organization that really doesn't change from position to position would already be in there. So again, just not having to start completely from scratch. Another thing to kind of keep in mind is with our emails, we want to make sure that we are kind of approaching this with a degree of strategy. We recommend, targeting specific email or targeting specific specialties, specific locations. So for example, keeping in mind things like if you have 3 cardiology positions in 3 towns in the same area, maybe combining those into one email blast. That way we can avoid future problems such as, hitting the same group of candidates repeatedly, which can kind of cause a bit of oversaturation, maybe some frustration on the candidate's part, things like that. So keeping in mind kind of a strategy when it comes to those emails is helpful as well. So let's jump into the email editor, as I had mentioned. This is asking me if I want to, link it to an opportunity. I'm in our training account at this time, so I don't have any. So I'm just going to click here to skip this step. When it comes to the subject line up here at the top, We recommend usually keeping that fairly short and sweet. You want to put in the specialty, you want to put in the location, and then also adding in a selling point can be helpful as well, such as if there is a fantastic call for this particular opportunity, or bonuses that you might offer, things that would cause this to kind of stand out, kind of draw their attention in. Um, for the email itself, we recommend using our drag and drop merge fields over here on the left. So hello, doctor, last name. So that's going to pull the last name from the physician's email or from the profile, inserting it into the email, which again is one of those things that's going to make it look a little bit more personalized. Another thing that we will typically recommend that you do would be to include multiple hyperlinks. So we recommend a hyperlink for the opportunity itself. That can be obtained from the Practice Match job posting. You could also link it to, the posting on your website as well. We recommend a link for the hospital or the medical group, as well as one, for the community if there's a good kind of visit our community type page. So if we were to put in one, say, for our company, Practice Match, go ahead and bring that website up. I'll grab the link from the top. We'll come back to our email. I'll highlight where I had typed it, click on the link in the toolbar, paste the website in there, and then I do want to change the target to a new window. And that just means that when they click on it, it is going to bring it up in a new window as opposed to replacing the page that they are on. Another thing that we do recommend that you utilize wherever possible when creating your emails is going to be bullet points. We try to recommend avoiding large blocks of text. People aren't going to really read those. So wherever possible, like I had said, try to make them into bullet points. As far as time of day to send out your email, this can change periodically. So always, please feel free to reach out to your account manager or our support team for best times and days to send. Currently, I typically send my emails out in the late afternoon or evening times when people are done with work or wrapping up usually. Next, what we're going to take a look at is going to be text match. So with text match, that is going to typically going to be used in either Pinpoint or AP Match. We'll focus on Pinpoint today. For the search for that, you want that to be a little bit smaller, or actually quite a bit smaller typically than your emails. Usually shooting to be somewhere between 100 and 250 candidates. Usually we don't recommend going over 250 for one send. The reason for this is just that candidates are going to be a lot more likely to respond to text messages. So this helps to kind of manage that inbox, even if they're just sending like a no or something along those lines. So we'll pull together just a quick search. We'll stick with our cardiology. I'll go for maybe a shorter year range this time. And we'll stick with just Missouri and we'll see what that gives us. Okay, perfect. Right in that window we talked about. So down here, we can see the number of mobile numbers available. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and save again. Perfect. From here, we can go ahead and we can select our candidates and we can click on compose text. Now, again, I am in our training account. I don't have a job currently posted, so I'm just going to have to talk you through a little bit of this. But some tips that we have in regards to texting would be introducing yourself and your organization. So the drag and drop merge field of last name is still available. So maybe say something along the lines as far as an introduction is concerned of, hi, doctor, and then insert that last name. This is Mallory with, ABC Hospital, that kind of thing. So that type of introduction. Also, we recommend including a clear call to action. So, are you interested? Are you free to talk tomorrow? Some type of a yes no question. If you ask a yes no question, um, people are going to be a lot more likely to respond. So, that clear call to action is important, not only in your texting, but also the emailing. So, both of them. Also, be specific. So, mention if the position is full time or part time, um, state, fellowship experience, things like that. This is easier also if you have Text Match Plus package, because it does allow you to have a larger character count. So some of these things may not be possible if you have just the base text match, due to character limitations. So I would focus on the introduction and the yes no question, if you have just the base package. If you have the larger package, then put in items such as the full-time or part-time fellowship experience, things like that. Also, one thing to make sure that's very important with texting, also emails, but with texting, because you're not able to put as much information in, make sure that the information in your posting is currently accurate and up to date, because you are going to be linking your job posting to your text. It is required. So they are going to get a lot of the information for the position from the job posting itself. So again, just double check that that is accurate, and up to date before sending out your text. So some ways to one way to use the text match kind of strategically would be to supplement your emails with texts. So this could look like a follow-up or a follow-up text to one of your emails. So for example, you could send a text message to anyone that did not read your initial email. So that's going to be a different type of kind of media reach out. Maybe that's something that is they're more reachable that way. Um, Also, when it comes to texting, keep in mind people are going to be a lot more likely to respond quickly, and when they do respond quickly with texting, oftentimes they kind of expect a response quickly as back as well. So make sure you're sending that text at a time where you will be kind of around your computer, able to log into Practice Match and view that information. And reply. So avoid sending it, when you're about ready to leave for the day or the weekend. If you have a day that you're going to be in meetings all day long, probably don't send a text that day. You don't need to sit at your computer, locked in for, the next 4 hours, but, within the next 30 to 45 minutes, I would say typically. All right, now moving on to email delivery reports. So the email delivery report is a very helpful tool when it comes to your, reach outs and follow ups for these candidates. So if I go into our mailbox and our sent messages, and over here, I'm just going to click on view details. So with this, you are able to see basically how your email performed, and then, reach out to these candidates again to kind of help with those multiple touches. So you have those that, did read the email, those that did not read the email, things like that. So as I had mentioned when we were discussing texting, you can send a text to those that did not read your initial email. So you could do that by selecting the candidates here, selecting those candidates, and then sending them a text. Also, we recommend sending follow-up emails or texts if you wish, to those that did read the email. And we typically recommend sending at least 2 of these, as well as a final step, which would be a call list. And that would be calling typically the candidates that read the email multiple times. Something to keep in mind in regards to these follow-ups and the importance of them. Some statistics actually, 44% of recruiters do give up after the first follow-up. So they just kind of stop doing it. However, it can take 80%. 80% of placements require 5+ follow-ups. So keep in mind that that persistence does pay off of sending those multiple follow-ups. Now, As I had mentioned previously, for any questions, if you need further training, anything in more details, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would, of course, be happy to help set up additional training and things like that.